Welcome to the Media Leader Podcast. I'm Jack Benjamin. In late September, Origin, the much-anticipated cross-media measurement platform currently led by Isba, went live through the launch of a beta trial. 35 major UK advertisers are currently testing the platform using real campaign data. That's not just a UK first, but a world first for cross-media measurement. And Origin expects to launch to the wider market early next year. While advertisers in the beta have signaled their excitement, Origin has been controversial in parts of the industry, particularly in its inclusion of non-MRC standard viewability measures. Barb, the joint industry currency for TV, has explained Origin has not sufficiently met its standards to allow it access to its data, and broadcasters in particular have raised multiple concerns about the platform. Last month, the Media Leader's own editor-in-chief, Omar Oakes, sat down with Isba's Director General, Phil Smith, at our Future of Media London conference to ask him tough questions about the future of Origin, concerns around measurement standards, and what advertisers are making of the beta so far. This is that interview. We hope you enjoy.
Phil, hello.
Thank you.
Hello everyone again, I'm Omar Oakes, Editor-in-Chief of the Media Leader, and welcome to this very special discussion with Phil Smith, who is the Director General, the boss of Isba, the trade body for advertisers. You're closing in on 8 years as Director General.
Yes, don't remind me. I've said if I get to 10, I should be shot.
Well, stay tuned for that at Future Media 2026.
Don't book me.
And we've timed this interview perfectly because, personally, I think one of the most ambitious, most interesting, most exciting initiatives, not just in this country, but globally, is happening right now in the media industry, and that is Origin, what used to be called Project Origin. This, as I say, ambitious initiative to give advertisers a platform where they can measure reach and frequency across all media channels potentially, importantly, de-duplicating, not double counting people. And we're going to get into how that's going. You've launched the all-important beta phase, which I think in previous conversations you said when we launched beta, that's effectively Origin launched. What have you learned? How's it going and what's next?
It's been a long old ride, and the beta trial is certainly a hugely important milestone. But there's a long way still to go. So for the first time, we've got 35 major advertisers, the biggest advertisers in the UK, who are using real live data from their campaigns and using the Origin platform to draw out data on TV and on digital platforms as well. And as you say, the first set of reporting is all about deduplicated reach and frequency. But as we go on, we're really keen to make sure that what we create is a rich and trustworthy source of data that will allow people to use it as a basis for their MMM and for their econometric modeling and for their evaluation of the effect of their spending.
And you plan to launch the final product version early next year. Can you reveal anything to this audience in terms of from beta to launch, what you already see might change?
Yeah, I think we have a roadmap of progressive improvements as we go that bring in things like more reporting features around more demographics and ultimately want to be able to move this into a planning offering as well. We will be bringing on more advertisers as we go. We'll probably go through a phase where we roll out to more advertisers before going to a completely open launch. Precise timings on that TBD. But so far it's going well. It's taken a while to get there. As I say, there's going to be many twists and turns, I'm sure, before we finish.
Yeah, and of course, and what's important about this beta is Origin is using real data for the first time, as opposed to using synthetic data in previous versions. But it doesn't have Barb for TV data. Why is that? Explain to the audience how that's come about.
Sure. Let's peel back a bit. We always designed Origin to be compatible with existing joint industry currencies. And we should say, Origin has never been designed to be or to replace a currency. It's not used for trading purposes. The use cases are all about planning, reporting, and evaluation. And we have been in ongoing discussion with Barb, continue to be in discussion with Barb about being able to ingest Barb data alongside Origin. But there are some issues when it comes to the way in which Barb issues its licenses and the requirements it places for audit that have meant we haven't reached that agreement, at least at this stage. So as we launch and as we go into the beta phase, what we've been using is our own linear TV data from our 2,500 home Kantar panel. It's allowed us to surface TV data at a second-by-second basis, and we continue to work with agencies, with the IPA, hopefully with Barb as well, on ways in which we can bring Barb in alongside Origin, potentially even in a partial way, because we know that quite a number of advertisers and agencies want to be able to see Barb data alongside Origin data as we go forward.
I mean, would it be fair to say, I mean, how much pressure are they putting on you to get an agreement with Barb to have that data in there?
There's quite a considerable amount of discussion going on, let's put it that way, between ourselves and the agency community. It would be fair to say that what we are doing, though, is very much in line with the framework that's been produced by the World Federation of Advertisers. It's been advertisers who've been demanding the things that we've built into Origin. And that's where that tension occurs. So if I just stand back for a moment, those people who come from a background which is about currency measurement, where historically the real creed has been apples with apples, come to this with a different set of views from those who are really hell-bent on evaluation, where what they're really looking for is richness in the data and granularity. And that's one of the reasons why we have sticking points around things like all measurable impressions, which we absolutely need to fulfill the WFA framework, and which are essential when it comes to any kind of cross-media comparisons, where by definition you're talking with apples against pears. So the use cases tend to put that tension into the conversation, but I'm hopeful that we can get to some area of compromise.
I mean, it just so happens that there's an op-ed from Barb CEO Justin Sampson in the Media Leader. It's published this morning. I won't quote from it because it's only just been published. It wouldn't be fair to do that. But I think there is this question around why, Barb, you mentioned the issues with Barb deciding how its data is used. It says that it doesn't want its data to be used alongside other measurements standards which don't fulfill the Media Rating Council MRC standards, which is minimum 2 seconds viewed in 50% of the screen, etc. I mean, without getting too much into the detail in the limited time we have, do you understand the point that broadcasters, for example, might think it's unfair to have high impact TV impressions in a platform measured alongside?
Well, let me say two or three things to that. I mean, the first is to say fair and objective measures are absolutely critical to Origin. And we have built in the MRC 2 seconds as a default standard when it comes to video reporting. The second thing I would say is that if you look at the status quo, all kinds of planning systems are being used currently with a very non-transparent use of apples with pears comparisons in the way in which reach and frequency estimates are being put together. What I'm saying we're doing is building in a level of transparency into the granularity that we're reporting that will allow people to be able to make judgments on the value that comes from high attention media, where you have high completion rates versus those where you have lower completion rates. So in the Origin system at beta, we will have the MRC 2 seconds as standard. There will be completed views for linear TV as well as for YouTube. And you will be seeing custom metrics as well for partially completed views. Now, our view is that people using that data will be able to make much better judgments on what is adding value in their campaigns. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. So that's interesting. So you mentioned the custom metrics as opposed to completed views and minimum 2 seconds. So are there advertisers or agencies who are actually asking for this data that they want to see that, if I might say so, lower level of standard?
I was on a call last week with one of the biggest advertisers in the world, who not only wants to see those cuts, but also wants to see everything at a second-by-second level of granularity, because they believe it will feed their analytics in a much more powerful way.
Okay. And you mentioned before that Origin is not meant to be seen as a currency, but won't it effectively be seen as a currency, used as a currency, if advertisers, agencies are using Origin to make trading decisions?
The use case is most explicitly not trading. Barb sits there as the basis on which TV is traded, has done for a long time. Our data is not intended to be used in direct conflict with Barb. It is there for planning, reporting, and evaluation use cases. So, we've talked about deduplicated reach and frequency from total TV across into platforms. We've talked about the need for a really rich source of data that can be used to drive better econometrics, better MMM. Those are the kinds of use cases that don't have a conflict with day-to-day trading at all.
And one more plug for the media leader. A very good piece by Sam Taylor, who was on the panel I was with earlier. The headline of the piece was Origin is not a currency, shouldn't be seen as a currency. Another very interesting piece worth reading. So you said step back a couple of times. If we step back for a third time, in terms of the broadcasters, in terms of Barb, in terms of the issues that you've had along the whole journey of Origin, do you think it's more of a perception issue, or you've mentioned some of the technical differences in why you've been unable to get Barb data in there? Do you think it's partly a perception thing? So some of the criticism is that, people like to say, oh, Origin, this is a project funded by Google and Facebook. Do you understand? Do you regret that sort of perception?
Well, I'd always like to have a perception which is universally positive, but I think if you are doing something worthwhile, it's usually the case that there are people who don't want it to happen. But I think there are a variety of views that come out of misperception. There are some that come out of vested interest. There are some out of people's inertia and liking of the status quo because it suits their business model or their particular interests or their worldview. So change is always difficult. However, having said that, this is something that has been driven by advertisers who are not happy with the status quo, because in the world which we now inhabit, we have media consumption which is massively fragmented. We have the media experience through creative, which is becoming more and more variegated by the day. And we either have siloed accountable reporting, or we have siloed unaccountable reporting, or we have cross-media measurement, which is very much not accountable and is currently not available for inspection. So, our view is that it is right that the platforms have come to the table and been significant shareholders, stakeholders in the Origin project. I would say also that alongside that, there's been significant money that's been put in by big advertisers, 35 of them in the program so far, alongside other stakeholders, and significant money as well from other parts of the media industry on the sell side. So, publishers, for example, have been stakeholders from the start. So I think those things are misperception. I think sometimes those stories are put about for a reason, but I'm convinced I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for the fact that the advertiser community, not just here in the UK, but globally, has been driving this for some time and has been impatient with the lack of progress. And that's why we sit underneath the WFA principles and the framework, and that's what we're determined to execute.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up two very important things. I mentioned at the start of the conversation that personally, I find this one of the most interesting stories in the media industry today, because number one, you talk about Facebook, Google, Meta, Alphabet, actually getting them to lift the lid on their walled gardens, getting to share that data for the first time, very interesting. And also the whole WFA North Star, this is something which could be replicated in different markets as well. So, the UK very much leading what could become a global effort to do cross-media measurement properly. Do you think that, you mentioned the funding before. I think towards the end of this year, over 5 years, you'll have raised £52 million for Origin the whole way through. You mentioned the contribution of Facebook and Google versus other advertisers. What percentage, can you tell the audience, what percentage is Facebook and Google funded so far?
We're not revealing that particular number, but the numbers that have been coming out of the buy side have grown significantly over time. So we're looking at funding from the advertiser community this year, which will be of the order of £3-4 million towards an overall project, which will be around the £20 million mark in the year. So that gives you some order of magnitude, and there are other funders in there as well. Now, having said that, let's go back for a moment. This is not easy technically. It's one of the reasons why the work that we're doing embeds open source software that's being created under the WFA's mantle through a project called Halo, and that will be used in other markets. privacy is key to what we are trying to do here. So we're using the best of panels, Kantar panel, to calibrate rather than to be the source of measurement. But from that calibration, we're bringing in first-party data at scale for in-home and out-of-home consumption from platforms and from publishers over time, which allow us to create that measurement. And it's the bringing that in a privacy-safe way so that we're not using the first-party data within the measurement. That's one of the really, really big challenges. So that's why it's been such a big, a big journey, and we've had great support from platforms, from Kantar, from Accenture as well, who've done the infrastructure, the integrations, and the user interface. And while that's a big sum of money to have spent in the UK, the intent is very much that this becomes something that is going to be capable of being scalable much more quickly and at much lower costs as we go from market to market. We're already seeing those synergies as we work with our colleagues in America in the ANA, who have a project called Aquila that uses the same common components and is built around the same architecture. Again, driven by a very common set of advertisers who are looking for the same set of results and that same level of granularity.
Yeah, and you mentioned just now the technical aspect of this. You use this virtual ID model, don't you? And the key thing about Origin, it's deduplicated reach and frequency measurements. I mean, how have you managed to achieve that? How did you build it? Who built it for you?
Yeah, so the virtual ID model comes out of the Kantar 2,500 household panel, which creates a virtual ID model of the entire population of the UK. And it's that model that is used within the Halo software to interface with the platform data, to bring back that platform first-party data, which is matched to the virtual IDs, in a way that's matched to the virtual ID rather than matched to the real individual. And that is then put through multi-party computation to ensure no risk of identification occurs, and then combined to give you that deduplicated reach and frequency. So the simple way to think about it is the first-party data stays with the platforms, the impressions are matched with the virtual IDs, it's those that come back into our system for matching.
Yeah, because it's been suggested that Google's had a heavy hand in building that virtual ID model as well. Is that fair to say, or is that another misperception?
Well, Google has been a contributor of engineering, as have other tech platforms as well. The code is open source. The whole system is going to be subject to audit and verification. So we will see. But if you wanted to go to some of the best software engineers in the world to build something which is difficult, who would you talk to?
Yeah. So as we look ahead to Origin launching next year, I mean, it's been, it's fair to say that it's kind of taken up a lot of your bandwidth and headspace during your nearly 8 years as Director General of Isba. Was there anything you would have done differently?
Well, apart from not starting in the first place. No.
Really?
This was something that my members asked us to do, or asked me to do, pretty much on day one of my tenure. So even though Origin was officially launched in 2019, our work on it started in 2017 and in earnest in 2018. So it's been a long journey. But as you say, it's one of the most interesting things that you are following. It's been incredibly interesting and rewarding and sometimes frustrating at the same time. But change is never easy.
I wish we had more time, but we don't. For now, thank you so much, Phil Smith. Please, big hand. Thank you for listening to the Media Leader podcast. You can find and listen to all our episodes on our website at themedialeader.co.uk or wherever you get your podcasts. But just remember, please do subscribe to be notified when we release our next episode. From all of us at The Media Leader, I'm editor Omar Oakes. Our executive producer is Jack Benjamin. See you next time.